Timcast IRL will be live in Miami with Patrick Bet David, Donald Trump Jr., Matt Gaetz, and Luke Rudkowski. Join us there. Get your tickets by clicking the link in the description below or by going to timcast.com. I want to pull up these tweets from Mike Cernovich talking about what happens when we lose in 2024. Now, I certainly think Mike is a bit, what's the right word? These tweets are very, very, very serious. I believe they may be a bit aggressive, but I think the spirit of them is correct. Now that I've given you that warning, you'll understand when I read them for you. Mike Cernovich tweeted, "When we lose in 2024, I'll be hunted down and murdered by the regime. Have already had this talk with my family. All these goober conservatives think they'll be okay. They won't. Look up the Bolshevik Revolution. Y'all gonna be imprisoned and you people have no clue." He was quote tweeting himself. He said in this tweet, "Showing these older tweets as I tend to be ahead, years usually on subjects, people attack me, and then years later copy my swag. Now I'll tell you the future. 2024 is total defeat. The RNC isn't even running ads on X, let alone doing other voter registration at scale." He then said, when we lose, he'll be hunted down. And then he added this: "If you're a conservative with a large platform, have you talked to your family about how you're going to be framed for a crime to be killed in 2024 if Biden wins? If you think this is hyperbole, you've not been paying attention. 2024 is life or death. It's time to understand." Well, I'm going to just show you Elijah Schaffer. He responded saying, "I've already begun taking precautions. I'm international for a reason." I find that to be a very interesting response from Mr. Schaffer. And while I do think Mike's tweets may be a bit aggressive, it's not so. People misunderstand these conversations because their view of the world is based on a movie. And in movies, what happens is the evil dictator, supreme emperor, takes power and then appears in a ghastly image with a hood and goes, "Execute Order 66." And then all of a sudden, all the good guys are just purged from existence. That's not really how it happens. What you need to understand about this stuff is, okay, so a tech entrepreneur in Baltimore was just beaten to death, raped, and murdered in her own home. And the man who did it was known to the police because only a few days earlier, he had beaten, tortured, and raped a woman in front of her boyfriend and then set them both on fire. I say these things because understand that was for no reason. When Mike Cernovich says when we lose, these things will happen, perhaps a bit aggressive, as I stated, because, we don't know what the time frame for kind of extremism will be. But there are several things you need to understand. One, we've got Chaz Chop already happening. We've got occupations already happening around the country. These things don't happen overnight. If you look to the American Revolution, the Boston Tea Party and the Boston Massacre were years apart. Lexington and Concord was 11 years after the start of the Revolutionary period. The actual start of the Revolutionary War took 11 years from the start of the period we determined to be revolutionary. You get Chaz Chop, in a matter of a couple of years, you have autonomous zones. We currently have Stop Cop City right now in Georgia, where hundreds of people went out and staged these acts of violence. We have 100 people in Philadelphia ransacking stores in total disregard for the law. That's social breakdown and social disorder. What I think would happen in the immediate is, I'll just put it this way. Mike Cernovich is not wrong. I don't think he'll be hunted down and murdered. I think he'll be Julian Assanged. People like Mike Cernovich, who pose a threat to the established order of the military-industrial complex and the neoconservative, neo-lib military agenda, whatever you want to call it, you'll get Julian Assanged, meaning they're going to accuse you like Russell Brand. I would not be surprised if Russell Brand ends up getting convicted. They've already found Donald Trump civilly liable for the most psychotic rape story imaginable. They've already ordered the dissolution of Trump's companies, and he's facing 91 indictments. Now, that's Trump. But people keep saying this thing where it's like, I'll be okay. Well, Aaron Danielson's not okay. He took 2 to the chest. He's no longer around. So perhaps, again, a bit aggressive, because I don't know if it's effective messaging to say they're going to kill you. They're screaming. Well, look, guys, the reality is dark days are in front of us. How long this period takes, we don't know. I actually don't think we're facing total defeat in 2024. I disagree with Mike on this. I respect his opinion. I think he's very smart. I think he does see ahead better than most. But I do see a possibility for victory in 2024, especially now that RFK is running. This changes the game substantially. But just understand, even if Trump does win, it doesn't mean whatever is happening in this country ends. When you have far left extremists storming government property, firebombing things, when it is the norm for them to go on social media and threaten people with death. And the reason why we bring the story up first is because the next story we're talking about is the guy who threatened to blow up Andy Ngo's speaking event was arrested. So there's still law and order, a little bit. Social order is breaking down when you look at San Francisco, when you look at Philadelphia, when you look at Chicago, New York, these flash mobs all over the place. That shows social order breakdown. And understand this. What do you think the government does when social order breaks down? Do you think that the government will come protect you when you are under attack by violent mobs of lawless rioters? Look only to 2020 when, there are two big stories. A woman was in her car surrounded by rioters screaming and banging on her car, and she called 911. And they said, what do you want us to do? And she goes, they're attacking me. What do I do? I have my daughter in the car. And they're like, ma'am, what do you want us to do? Good luck. Another guy in his apartment said that people were fighting in his lobby and the rioting was get there. And he was told, sir, the city is under attack. What would you have us do? I love the writing of the game Fallout 3. You guys, I think you're all familiar with it at this point. I talk about it a lot. So for those that aren't familiar, Fallout video game, I know it's fiction, but it's written by humans who are looking at what happens around the world and what they think may occur. The video game is about a nuclear annihilation, nuclear war, wipes out the world, and then everyone goes into vaults, simplified version. The government becomes something called the Enclave, the remnants of the United States government. And you know what they do? They shoot and kill you in the game. And this is, I think, correct writing on the part of the game developers. The US government will seek to preserve itself, and you are in the way. So when we begin seeing non-citizens being shipped into Staten Island, what do the police do? Beat and arrest the residents of Staten Island. They seek to preserve themselves by any means necessary, and you are in the way. So what Mike is saying and my concerns are more so, it's not that Biden will get reelected and order the police to execute Order 66. It's that they're going to say, circle the wagons around government and destroy in any way possible anyone who threatens us.
If you want to know what's going to happen, you can look to what happened in the Cultural Revolution in China. There is ample examples of what happens when the government has a change of what the fundamental principles that government stands for means, and the way that the population reacts and the way that the government reacts. We saw in 2020 a whole lot of rioting and a whole lot of stuff going on, and the police could not, and maybe they could have, but they refused to do anything about it. I don't see any reason why, if there is some other type of civil unrest like that, how the police or the government would behave any differently.
I would hope that they would see the mistake they made in 2020 by letting it get out of hand and not stomping it on day two.
It didn't get out of hand.
Well,
to them, they got what they wanted. In fact, it worked perfectly.
What I'm wondering is, because you were saying, I think Tim mentioned it's like a dissolution of order in the system, but what I definitely see is a rise of organized crime in the system. These people that are organizing on Facebook chats, wherever, Signal, they're organizing flash mobs, they're organizing. And it's like not one organization, it's a lot of little organizations, but it's a new type of organized crime that needs to be dealt with. And it's maybe that the government doesn't know how to deal with it quite yet. They got their spy tech, but it's just so disparate, it's hard to see it coming. You've got 9 poor kids in Philadelphia that want to get on a Signal chat and decide to go break into a Best Buy at 9 o'clock. Like, you can't, how does the government, so it might be that they are unequipped. Worst case scenario, they're complicit.
They're letting it happen.
That's what I fear the most, because if the government gets behind organized crime, then you're looking at a cultural revolution. That's like what it is. Hopefully they want to stomp it out as much as the citizens do, and they're just looking for a time and a place.
Yeah, he mentions the Bolshevik in the tweet. You just mentioned the cultural. All of these have in common a plan for different tiers in society, right? So the average normal person, that's a problem, would be dealt with a lot differently, right? Maybe they just leave that to the flash mobs. Maybe that they leave that to the activists and the extremists. But people like Cernovich, maybe even some of us, seriously, that would be different. The Julian Assange treatment, lawfare when it can be done. I know people who have been indicted in Georgia, were this close to being indicted in Georgia. So they're there, but I guess that matters. What role are you playing and how influential are you in opposing something that they don't like? I do just want to bring up this 2024 is total defeat. I don't know if he's using reverse psychology there or what, but he's right about the RNC not doing enough. So as a pollster, I look at this and I say, they're indicting Trump because he has improved so much with certain groups that Republicans are not supposed to win. They know that. And they're looking at that. And they're saying, what other choice do I have? I might as well, because if this man gets back in, it may be me on the block. Still, the RNC is way behind in infrastructure. They should have done much better in 22 and didn't, because they still don't really understand what they're up against. And even watching, because I know about this, even watching some of them trying to get it together and trying to deal with ballot harvesting. It's a messiah complex on the right. Everyone wants to be the hero. They're not working together like Democrats work together.
Yep. Well, I highlighted this in a segment where I was talking about Democrats going full communist because they're cheering for the ruling against Trump's businesses, where the judge basically banged the gavel, summary judgment, no more Trump organization. And I showed this voting chart of the social scale and the economic scale. Trump's voters are anti-woke, but spread out between the left and the right. Trump even has communists who support him. Like, I don't mean like the ideological communists of the woke. I mean people who believe in very far left progressive economic systems of government control. He has very few actually laissez-faire capitalists, interestingly, but they're very. It's the cluster is in the center.
Actually, it doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
The Democrat bloc is clustered entirely in the far left social and economic area, which means they mostly just march in lockstep. Not completely. There are Democrats reaching up into the less woke area, but the cluster, maybe the plurality, large or majority, is all hyper concentrated in one circle, ultra woke, as far left as possible in both economic and social. Again, Trump's base was anti-woke, opposing the social left, but spread out in terms of economic policy, which explains shows like this. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.